a large crowd. I came by for two reasons. First is to thank the board, but more specifically to thank Mr. Perez. You may not remember I came in front of the board, mostly a new board, in November, requesting that a couple of trees that I had, that have a property that's maintained by the district, be trimmed because they were starting to impinge on some solar panels I put in many years ago. It was all done, and done very well, so I thought I'd come by and say thanks. You probably don't get thanks very much. The other item is that I actually wanted to touch base with Mr. Perez, which I can do after the meeting, just to make sure that all the items that were associated were closed. And I didn't say so, but my name is Robert Ziegler, and I live at
8 days. And in those 58 days, I am hoping that you have learned something. Previously, during your campaign, you had made allegations to the fact that there was a $10,000 credit card bill out there. Yes. And a credit card statement for Mr. Perez. And at that time, you went around and you told everybody that was fact, that they had a $10,000 credit card bill, or he did. Well, now that you're on the board and you found out the documentation and everything on it was not $10,000. It was 10, but it was all paid back, but $47. What do you have to say for yourselves about that? Are you proud of the fact that you won an election telling the people these stories? And also, another fact, Mr. McKay, it was a while back you stated that taxes could not, the sewer tax could not come off of the tax bill. Well, I went to the county myself and talked to the tax collector, and it can be taken off. Also, I talked to 2 CPAs and 2 reputable tax preparers, and they said, yes, it can. So that's another fact that you misleaded the people. Pardon me?
I think you're misquoting me.
Well,
I did not say
no, you said that was incorrect. I think Mr. Wallace made the statement. And you...
No, I didn't.
It was said. It was definitely said at one of the meetings.
Because I know it can come off.
It was said, that was one of my big things, is we made sure we looked at it, we listened to it, and we all said, where are you getting your facts from? You know, so I made it a point to go up and ask about it. And it is tax deductible. So don't worry about that. And I don't know, I'm just hoping that you 3 can do the job that you say you can do. Right now in your 58 days, as far as an evaluation for you 3, you failed. You have failed, and badly. But that's all I have to say.
Gail Warner with the Rosamond Community Watch Program. I want to let you guys know we all are still here. Things are looking really good. Had a really great meeting last week. Saw some new faces. Missed some of the old faces. Our undertaking now, and some of you were here when we were here a couple of weeks ago, we have adopted Sierra Highway for cleanup from Avenue A to Rosamond Boulevard. Community Watch has taken on the responsibility of adopting it, but you as a community need to get involved with us and help. It's going to bring pride back into our community, not just for the Community Watch participants, but for everybody here. We're available on Facebook, we have email, we have a website. Get in touch with us and be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Robert Krutko. I was one of the lucky few that got to go on the tour of the RCSD 2 weeks ago. And we got to see the facility here, and it was very interesting to see all the new technology. I guess we need new computers now, but the technology involved in the district. And then we took a tour. We went to the water tank up on 30th Street West, and then we went to the treatment plant out on Patterson, and then the next stop was at the water tank. It was a very interesting tour, very informative, and the previous board and Steve have done a pretty good job for this community of Rosamond. So thank you all for the tour that we were able to go.
Thank you.
Good evening. I just, while I've got all of you here together, I want to talk about the Rosamond Foundation. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but you 3 new members are automatically board members of the Rosamond Foundation. And in fact, all 5 of you are on the board. We need to have a meeting. I am still currently president of the board, but we need to have an election to appoint new officers and to new president, secretary, treasurer, and all that stuff. And I'd like to get it done as soon as possible so we can get everything going. The foundation is vital to this agency to raise money for parks and recreation for the RCSD park facilities. As you know, we don't have money coming in for those facilities. And to be able to work for grants and donations and things of that nature as well. And so if you guys could please email me at your earliest convenience to when it'd be a good time where we could have a meeting and get together on this and get this moving forward again. Thank you.
Glenn Vincent. I had some question I want to talk about at the last board meeting when Mr. Hoffman, the assistant general manager, updating all of us on the some public works project going on with the community, and he had made some reference to one of the tanks here in the community. I believe it was tank number 3, if I'm not mistaken. He was sharing, I guess, what, once every 5 years, if I understood him correctly, it's supposed to be drained or something like that. So he said we had to drain the tank, and I guess he's not here, so I don't know, maybe Mr. Price can answer my questions. I was just curious, how much water was, approximately gallons, was drained out of the tank. The reason I'm asking because, we've all been talking about the droughts going on the last couple of years within the state, especially down here, we're saving water and how water is becoming more expensive. And I was just curious, if you know how much water was drained out of there, because if it was talking tens of thousands of gallons, why wasn't the water then just, I don't know if it was saved, if it was not, it was just let flush down the hill. Actually, tank number 3, is that the one on top of 30th West? Okay, thank you. Good. Do you know how much water was in that tank by chance, sir?
If I may.
Yes, sir.
The tanks, no water was dumped. Water is transferred from that tank to other tanks in the system. All 5 tanks are hooked together, so we can move water to any part of the system. It's a 2 million gallon tank.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Now for learning how boards work and how some boards improve and communicate, and I think one of the speakers basically said what you want to do is, his #1 word was clarity, and we'll look forward to working on that. There was a lot of things we learned up there, and we also made a lot of good contacts. I've given the board secretary some things I'd like to see on the agenda just in the future, including defining our mission statement. What I've given you is just a draft. Don't expect that to be the mission statement, but it'll give us something to work from. The vision, likewise, a vision statement. And the other thing that, while we're up there, I was actually able to attend the meeting of the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. And that was very enlightening in that there is some grant money out there from the Lahontan region to develop a number of things with the water. And one of those things that, one of the people I ran into was a former manager of the, I guess the executive officer, I don't know if that's the manager, of the Lahontan region. And Lahontan runs all the way down from the Oregon border, about 50 miles wide, along the eastern end of the Sierra, all the way down to Palmdale. And they direct how we can use our water, specifically our reclaimed water. And Mr. Harold Singer was very clear to me. He said, well, this is crazy, why do we have all these rules? Why can't you take perfectly clean water and bank it? He said, well, because it's reclaimed water. He says, but you know, Lahot only covers this much, and the state only covers this much, and if you want to go to where you can put that in there, you need something known as a marsh. I said, well, wait a second, this is the desert, we don't have marshes here. And he said that it's called a constructed marsh. And you can use a constructed marsh to put in our reclaimed water, which as you might know, we have purple pipe running all the way up on the freeway, up close to where the colored rock pit is, not too far from Rattlesnake Road where Dan's Ford has his pit up there. And then the next thing you know, I run into, then I attend the AVIC meeting and find out how they have the grant money, and they're looking for people to partner with, including Palmdale Water District. Rob Harris mentioned he was already going to attend their meetings to see what he can do to work with Palmdale Water District. And obviously, I mentioned to Rob, well, when I come to Rosamond, we'll find somebody. I know that the person I was meeting that had a little computer screen up is the new Rosamond representative who replaced Charlie Laughlin, so she represents part of the Kern County area. And of course, Keith Dias was there as well. So that got the juices going there, and then the next morning I met a man named Hector Ruiz from Trabuco Canyon, Orange County. And he actually went through the grant process through Orange County. He had to get his grant all together over Thanksgiving and Christmas, and they gave him a grant to do a constructed marsh. Now, they're not in the Lahontan area, but same concept. To do a constructed marsh in the Trabuco Canyon area, and he's like, all ready to start construction on that. So it's something I'd like to see us look into and maybe get in contact with. Hector said that he was willing to come up and get us pointed down the right direction for engineering and paperwork. In addition to being the manager, he's also an engineer. That we might need to go ahead and apply for that money. At the AVIC meeting, they said that money you had to have your application in by September of this year. So we should have some time, but they're also very vague on the time, so I'm not sure if we got to get in there earlier, but certainly if we come up with a plan, then we can maybe do something with that. I'd like to see that, if it's necessary, to put that on the agenda as well for next time. And then the other thing that I'd like to see is we can save some money. As I explained to many people, I was opposed initially to the Community Services District, Rosamond Community Services District. Jewel, I always thought was the way they took care of United Street Park, and they got that up and going and running very nicely. And then it kind of tapered off, and I thought, well, that's the one thing that makes us parks for the Community Service District. At least people know we do parks. But I think Mr. Perez said, no, we need to get back to the school, and the school grabbed it and did a great job with that, and actually saved some money on that. Likewise, I think that looking at the budget, it's something we should review every quarter. I don't think we reviewed it yet. I don't know, Brad, if sometime we can get to that. I just took the one page.
We did the first quarter.
Yeah, we did the first quarter, but maybe can we look at the same numbers on page 20 of the August 27th
We do it
budget?
in quarters. We just split those numbers up by 4.
Okay, well, one of the things I noticed is the parks goes in the hole every $174,000 every year, at least, if not more, $438,000. And most of that's related to managing West Park. And we've got, I don't know what the corporate term for someone who wants to come in there and do a golden night or whatever, wants to come in there and take the parks off our hands and take that $430,000 liability off our hands. And although that West Park doesn't belong to us to begin with, but we kind of took the responsibility from the county so we keep the pool open. I'd like to be able to see if someone wants to do that and take that liability off our hands, we should certainly give them the opportunity, especially given the fact they've proven themselves over there with the school site at United Street Park, and also given the fact that they're opening a new park. I guess they're starting construction on it now, and it's going to be done by the end of May, right next door to the West Park. Well, within 100 yards of it anyway. But, so that's something I'd like to see on the agenda too, see if we can maybe look into that and setting up an MOU with the school district and the county, because it is the county's property after all, to do that. And they also expressed interest in a county park on Glendower, which is right next to their school, which again makes a whole lot of sense, especially since they're going to be building it pretty soon. So those are the two things I'd like to see addressed in the future, and I really learned a lot at the the California Special Districts Association Conference up in Napa, and as did my colleague, Mr. McKay, as you may not know, is a past president of that organization in 1994, and 1988, 89, and as well as his Special Districts Finance Board. He was the president of that board as well. A lot to know, a lot of people to meet, a lot was learned from many districts that have the same problems we do. They have just differing angles on things. Bottom line is we're going to strive for clarity, we're going to strive for transparency, and we'll hope you all will keep showing up as we do that.
Afternoon. And as you might not know, Mr. Perez is the only employee that the board has. All the other staff work for Mr. Perez. And one of the things that we learned at the conference was that we should get to meet the staff. So I've asked Mr. Perez to set it up for us so that we can meet his staff and talk to his staff to learn some things about the district. Anyone else have anything? Mr. Glenn?
The grants are running right around $300,000, but that's between Rosamond, Mojave, Boron, and Tehachapi. And there were about 20 grants turned in for Rosamond businesses to the tune of $137,000. There's only $300,000 available. So obviously there has to have something happening, and they told the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce that we need to set up a priority. Terry might be able to speak to that in just a minute, but anyway, those grants need to be prioritized so that we tell them what's really the first one we want and the second one, because we're not going to get all of them. I think there's going to be a meeting on, they're going to start talking about it. Also, the flagpole was finished. Run by the chamber there and look at the new flagpole that they have. And from the time they start the diamond construction, they figure 3 months. And the hope is it'll be finished by September Fest. But I don't know if Terry wants to clear up my report from the chamber meeting or not. And there are a couple seats up here. And it looks kind of like a little bit of a church meeting because the seats in the front aren't being used. Here's what you can do now. If you need to leave, just pick up your phone, put it up next to your ear, and walk out. Everybody will think you're just going out for a call, and nobody will be embarrassed. And I used to stand in the back a lot of times because the back wall needs to be held up. And we know that, so you guys back there lean good against that back wall so it doesn't tip over, okay? Welcome.
First is, this evening, we're shutting down all the power in the district and in the district offices here, and all the computer systems, and everything's going down. We're doing a cutover for the solar, and that requires us to cut all power and all emergency power. So in doing so, we have to systematically take down our entire network, and we have to do it properly so we don't lose a lot of data. What I'd like to do is encourage everybody in here and to pass this around to your friends. There's some phone numbers on the back tables. Please take one if you have an emergency. Call this number, not the RCSD, because the phones will be down also. But this number will get our 24-hour person, and they'll handle your emergency.
When is the power going down, tomorrow?
Power's going down so
Tonight.
they can have a cut over to the solar system.
When, tonight?
Tonight.
For how long? Is there for everybody?
It's gonna go down tomorrow morning, but we're shutting down internal things tonight. It'll be, Lizette, how many days did they say? 2?
It should be 6 hours.
Yeah. And so when they say 6 hours, if you plan for mistakes, 2 days. So hopefully it'll be 1 day. And hopefully the inconvenience won't be that bad for everybody. This time on the phone, What we've done is arranged for the auditor, Rosalba Flores, to be on the telephone and answer any of the board's questions. So, good evening, Rosalba.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, everyone.
We can hear you pretty good, so.
Yes.
Great.
And I believe the board requested this to be brought back, so the pleasure is to the board.
Okay. Now, my question to the board is, does anyone have anything on the draft audit that was presented to us that they want to talk to Mrs. Flores about tonight?
Yes, just two things. When we were discussing this in the committee meeting on December 3rd, 2014, it was noted that in prior years, the district wrote off approximately $214,000 for the 2012-2013 invoices related to the delivery of banked water. The write-off was approved by district management, however, was not approved by the board. And you made a recommendation. Do you know whether that recommendation was followed or not?
Did you look at the status in the report that I prepared?
It says management responded in that year that the reviewed a document and formalized in a written policy. And do you remember whether that was done later or not?
No, but what I'm referring to is that is a prior year finding. So whenever we issue a management letter for the current year, we follow up on prior year findings and we include a line item that says status. So did you look at the status?
Look at current year. Current year status, see current year's agreed upon finding 2.
Now, if you look at that finding 2, there's something to that matter. So it wasn't necessarily resolved, that's what that means.
Okay. That's something we need to work on still, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And it also mentions a $16.99 credit card charge that was not reimbursed. Do you know anything about the purchase of a movie at a hotel stay?
I mean, it's documented in the finding, it was an oversight, but, we're still doing our due diligence and reporting it. Obviously, it's very petty, but, again, we're doing our due diligence and reporting it to the board.
Okay. And the last time we talked, well, since we talked, I talked to the person who presented at CSDA, and he indicated that by accepting your findings, we're not approving what they say or otherwise approving of any past behavior. We're just saying this is what happened, and we understand this is what the audit says. So is that your understanding?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chandler, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Smith?
I have one question. This was held over and required additional time by the audit committee. Do you have any feel for what this holdover and these 3 questions cost us?
I would defer to the auditor if she hasn't told us or anything.
Do you have any feel for what's going to be added to our bill for the audit?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Because we held this over and asked for more of your time, do you have any feel for how much it's going to add to the contract of the audit?
I don't, but I can tell you some of the procedures that we have to do, and what it is basically updating through the date of issuance, which is what our standards require. And so I've already commenced that today by requesting board minutes up until now from where we left off back in December. I do also need to contact all attorneys that were sent a letter so that they can provide me with an updated response. And this afternoon I spent a little bit of time going over general questions with the district accountant to make sure there wasn't anything that we need to know in the report that would change the report.
And the report's not changed at all.
I'm sorry?
The report
No,
was,
I'm saying that could possibly change because of events significant to our audit that would be required to be disclosed.
but the current report that you're presenting to us is the exact same one you presented before.
Correct. I'm not saying that there is a change. What I'm saying is I've got a document that there wouldn't be anything of significance that would require me to go in and ask, for instance, an additional disclosure relating to a litigation or a subsequent matter such as a signing of a major agreement. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I want to thank you for.
Yeah, like I said, at this point, I can't give you an amount because, like I said, I'm in the process of doing those additional features
Thank you,
to
ma'am.
get us up to today's date.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr.
You're
Glenn,
welcome.
Mr. Glenn, one of the things that you're failing to take into consideration when you're saying that we're costing the district extra money by having this table is the fact that we were just elected and we're trying to do the due diligence to take care of the district. And it was not, something that we were trying to do to cause money. It was trying to be able to go through this package and understand what is all there and have our questions answered.
Can I respond to you?
Yes.
There was a committee meeting of the finance committee, and she was here prior to this coming to the board, and both of you were there, and she asked you, did you have any questions? And you asked her questions, and she answered. Then when she presented it here, she asked if you had any questions, and you asked questions, and she presented it, and you still wanted more answers.
Yes, because there was a lot more to be taken care of.
And the three things that we've added to this, to me, were already answered. And she didn't need to answer them again.
That's well said. They were answered to your satisfaction, but they weren't answered to the satisfaction of the rest of the board. And so we were trying to do due diligence and get the answers that we were looking for.
If that's true, fine.
Okay?
I have one more question.
Yes.
Miss Rosala Flores, there's one thing on our agenda item tonight regarding the fact that there's $32,000 in deposits, I think, that people have made over time that we can't account for. Did you have a chance to discuss that with our accountant, and why doesn't that show up in the audit at all?
Can you provide me with more detail on what these deposits are? What are you referring to?
Well, looking at what was provided by the district accountant indicated that there's $32,000 showing, I believe, in the bank, extra than what we're showing in the books. But I believe it's because of deposits that people have made and not been returned over time. Is that something that you concern yourself with? Am I right about that, Broward?
One moment, that's not deposits that were made at any time. This is a computer information technology issue only. This is not an actual exchange of money. At no point was the word deposit used.
Okay, but is that something that she should be concerned about, Brad?
She passed on it in the 2013 audit. She was aware of it. She knew about it. We've discussed it, yes.
Okay.
If I may add to that, if you consider that, an audit encompasses materiality because we cannot look at every single transaction. So your independent auditor's report that I've issued will explain to you regarding materiality and that the financial statements are materially stated correctly.
So you don't do an in-depth analysis, which our accountant probably did, and you're just looking at the overall picture. Is that what you're saying, Ms. Flores?
Not necessarily. What I'm saying is that we have to utilize a materiality threshold in our audit because what we are providing to you is an opinion that your financial statements are materially misstated, and there will be things that we consider trivial, and that's a matter of audit judgment that we're not going to opine on because they're trivial to our audit.
Okay, and $32,000 was considered a trivial amount at that time, or?
Correct.
I'd like to touch on a couple things. In regards to the orientation packet, I think it wasn't that we didn't want to give these to you. It was that we were met with resistance in doing a briefing And with the exception of Mr. Schinkeldecker, and then some of the actions that occurred around that did not present itself to a friendly transition of power, and it just didn't get done. So we'd be happy to do that, and we'll get them to you. Thank you. The other thing, in regard to the Lahontan grants, there's something in the valley that's called an Integrated Regional Water Management Plan. It is a document that all providers in the valley participate in. In addition to that, there's an urban water management plan, and that's more localized for our area. In the IRWIMP, the regional, you have to qualify your projects to qualify for the Lahontan grants, because it does come through Lahontan, but it is kind of managed by the IRWIMP, so they look at it regionally for the distribution of those grant dollars. It's not as easy as just running to Lahontan and saying we've got a good project. Their projects are vetted, they're prioritized, and I might say that we do have projects that are prioritized in the priority, but the entire IRWIMP board will at that time determine which ones they'll push up for the grants, for the grant dollars.
Do we have any projects we've already submitted to them that are in the
Yes.
queue?
Yeah, we
Do
have
we need to
the,
clean them up at all, or do you know how that works?
pardon me?
Do we need to update them and represent them, or how do they sit?
No, they sit in priority right now. I'm not sure what is ahead of them of more priority, but in order to even have a chance, you have to be a priority project. There's just a few of those, and our priority project happens to be the consolidation of the 10 water companies around the area to assist in providing revenues for accomplishing that big task.
Is there any way we can tie ABEC into that? Because it sounds like if you get another water company involved, your chances improve. It sounds like you're looking for partnerships.
Yes, you can tie another agency in, which we're tied into ABAC already, and we're already providing regional services with the SNP line and the SNP connector tied in with partnership with the water bank. But those wouldn't qualify per se unless there was an additional project that had to be built in regard to that.
Are any of the 10 water companies we're looking to bring into the district located anywhere near any ABEC lines?
Well, within a reasonable distance, yeah.
Okay, maybe that's somewhere we can get a tie in.
But if they're tied into, these water districts are tied into an ABAC line, if we're pumping water from the ground and not using ABAC, it doesn't do them a lot of good. Having them tied in, however, in the future, because of the adjudication, is probably going to be a good thing. But then again, you have the separation of a state water contractor versus a retailer that we are. They provide us the water, we provide it to our constituents. So in the lines that they do have, they don't do, as a rule, residential tie-ins on a 54 or 74 inch line.
Are you talking about wells in Mojave or?
Well, actually, what they bring from the aqueduct all the way into the plant here on 30th.
The raw water?
Right.
Okay.
Can you give us an update on the
Work up there before they jump onto building recycle water line and doing that. They have some steps that they gotta go through before they'll do that. Lutz had told me that they're still in the queue to take that, but it's gonna take him some time to get
Did you
it.
say it's gonna go across the base property or something?
Actually, no, in thinking about how to do this, when speaking to Lutz at one time, we were talking about the Edwards easement going north, but it's absent a CEQA, which is costly because they're gonna make the users pay for it. The way that we could do it the easiest is to take out an encroachment permit, because Sierra Highway now is a county road and not a state highway. So we could take an encroachment permit and go right up the side of Sierra Highway, all the way to the equivalent of Reed Road, make a left turn, go underneath the freeway, and we'll penetrate on properties that are owned by Lutz in the mine.
Thank you. Does AVEC have a line that runs straight up 20th though, on this side of the freeway?
Yes, they do.
Is there
Don't
a
they
way
have
can-
one that goes up to access road?
Can't they piggyback on that?
No.
Okay, I looked at it, all right.
And
It
then,
has to be so far away.
SoCal Gas has a line and an easement, which would be the straight shot right up the access road and virtually. But they don't want to give any of their easement, because if you make one mistake, they have a big problem. And so they were hesitant to do that.
Are they required to replace all their gas lines here, or otherwise test them in the next 50 years? I understand that. That is
That's
the
not
case.
my department, I don't know.
That might be something, if you're gonna do that anyway, why don't dig it up and put it in the right spot?
Well, it's not so much that. Their easement is a certain width, their line is pretty large, and when they dig it because of rocks and the rock outcroppings that they go through, it bumps that pipe around and it's not perfectly straight.
My understanding is too that we need to get them to move the lines in front of the high school, is that right, Raleigh? That too, because they want, otherwise if they're gonna do any building in the high school, you gotta put a 15-foot mound up.
Are you talking, what are you talking
About
about, gas
the-
line or water line?
Gas
or
line.
sewer
Gas line.
Gas line. There is a high pressure main that runs right up Rosamond Boulevard, and they are talking about a blast berm to be put on Rosamond Boulevard for the schools if new construction takes place.
Is there any, are they talking about also maybe moving that line, or how's that, what's that looking like? Nothing that?
Additionally, the Rosamond Community Watch, Gail Warnick and her husband Paul have met with me several times, and we've discussed trying to assist them in their efforts to beautify and clean up Rosamond. And currently we have a call into the state for assistance along Sierra Highway with a work crew, and additionally with Kern County Roads to try to set up a blade to be utilized between Patterson and Rosamond Boulevard. The Warnicks are wanting to and have seen a need to clear those culverts that run east and west, and where most of our drainage goes. Happens to be from about Patterson Road to about Marie Street, and moves straight to the base, and most of those culverts, if you notice, are all full. And they've seen the need, that they need to be cleaned out. So in my discussion with Kern County Roads, I will ask if we can get a crew out there to open those up so we can have some free flow of our drainage, so we don't have that standing water possibly as long as we do. Hopefully we can move it. I think they ought to be commended for trying to do this. I know for years we've, residents in Rosamond have participated in cleanup programs, and it seems to go for a while, then it dies out, and it goes for a while and dies out. And their efforts are commendable because they feel that if we can beautify our community, it just makes us all look better. And that's why we've committed to give them whatever help we can give them in doing that. Now, as was mentioned before on Tank 3, what they're doing currently is they're treating the tank with 500,000 gallons of hypochlorinated water. And that kind of the disinfectant after everybody is tromped through there. And I would caution in the future when we have one of the tours, if you see an open vessel, do not go in it. Because right above the door was confined space sign, and it's a tremendous liability to the district if something would happen with somebody that's not trained with in confined space if something should happen. So just as a point of reference on that. We do rotate the cleaning of all of our tanks. We have 5, and we clean one a year. And that continually keeps them in proper shape, keeps all the leaks and the patches and everything inspected and taken care of. So the guys do a real good job at doing that, and it'll be brought online right after the bacteria testing is completed. They completed monthly meter readings, repaired angle stops at one location, which is good news, only one repair there. Service lines repaired at about 3 or 4 different addresses, 80% complete on the fire hydrant install at the wastewater treatment plant for the solar project. It's kind of ridiculous. You've got a solar project and we're required to put in a fire hydrant by that. And I just got to say, if it catches on fire, I wouldn't want to be the guy spraying water on an electrical construction. The other thing is they completed 130 work orders.
Any questions for the general manager?
Regarding some recent changes to the Conflicts of Interest Code adopted by the Fair Political Practices Commission. There have been some additional changes very recently. You'll be getting a new update from me on that. Also, I wanted to ask the board if there is an interest in conducting a workshop on the duties and responsibilities of board members, kind of an overview of your obligations to the district, your obligations under the Brown Act, these types of things. You may have gotten a lot of that at your recent training, but I wanted to provide that opportunity to you. It's something I do for lots of my clients. Yes?
I would love it.
I think it would be awesome. I was wondering, one of the things I asked at the CSDA is, does the Rosamond Municipal Advisory Council qualify as a special district? The answer was no, it doesn't. But I know that many of the members would appreciate to be included in training if that's possible.
Okay. Right. So I'll work with staff to see if we can find a day to do that and schedule it with you guys to give you that kind of a training.
And ladies and gentlemen, it will be open to the public because it will be a public meeting.
You know, that one conference that Mr. Glenn went to, he wrote up a 2 or 3 page report, right, for each report. It was a good report. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's it for me.
All right, we go through these action items. The board is going to discuss this action item, and when we're finished with the discussion, we're going to open it up for public comment for you to have an input into the decision that we're going to make. And after we close the public comment section, the board will take a vote on the item. And so each item that's on this action item tonight is going to have a discussion by the board, then it's going to have public input, and then we're going to take our vote. You all clear on that? And one of the things that we would like to do, I would like to ask if, I'm going to ask at the end of our discussion how many people would like to address the board. And if there's a number of you that are wanting to address the board, I'm going to ask that we cut the public time down to 3 minutes per individual so that we can get the business taken care of tonight. Any questions? Okay.
I think we should be concerned about doing a separate audit then, or should she be doing that, or is that something you can do, or who should be doing the audit of the Rosamond Foundation?
The board of the foundation would need to hire an auditor, a separate auditor outside of the Rosamond Community Services District jurisdiction.
So maybe we can make that an agenda item when we first meet, we get a chance with Mr.
I don't think they have the money to do it.
The foundation is a separate and distinct legal entity. Although you wear 2 hats, it is a separate entity from the service district.
Yeah, the foundation has at least $32,000 in the bank, is that right? Mr. Wood? Actually, I don't know.
First off, there was never $100,000 collected, and the audit report has been given. In fact, Olaf, it was given at the, after it was asked for, even though no other public agency gives an audit report at the RMAC meeting foundation did come. Kathy gave a full, complete report, and she gave a full, complete report in this board meeting, at the next board meeting. All the figures are accounted for, all the money's accounted for. I don't know the exact amount that's in there. When we had our last meeting here as directors, Kathy turned over all the records and documents. They're in a banker's box in Steve's office, and we will be going over all of these when we sit down for our meeting, so we can get everything set up to go. But yes, everything is there, always has been. Financial report has always been given every year. Tax report with the IRS has always been filed, and so all the records are here. And you'll see that the money that was collected is accounted for and still there.
I'd like to clarify something also. Embellishment seems to be the word of the day when it comes to the foundation and John Joyce. And I've got to clarify the fact that I don't know where he comes up with $100,000. He was a member on the board, and never once did he participate or see $100,000 in that bank account. Secondly, he claims that monies were brought into the district. That money still sits in the same foundation bank account. It hasn't gone anywhere. When you move papers to the district from somebody else's location, it doesn't mean that the money came with it and was put into our account. Had that money been put into our account, we would have a record of it coming in, and we would have a record if any of it went out. I just wanted to make that as a point of clarification, because it's a total fabrication, and if Mr. Joyce wants the right numbers on how much money since the inception of the foundation, all he has to do is ask. But I would ask this, that if he asked, I would ask that the other media also ask for that same information, so we all have the same report going out to the community. Because it's misinformation that creates confusion.
Well, they paid for the playground equipment part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that about 30,000 or something like that?
I don't know.
Question for council. Is the foundation treated any differently than this, the public, community service district is a public entity, and people have a right to see what's going on 100% here. Is that the same as with respect to Rosamond Foundation?
I'm not counsel for the Rosamond Foundation, but my understanding is it's 501c3?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a non-profit. It's governed by the corporation's code.
So there's nothing that says we can't just put a website up, put all the documents up, and the public can view it right there on the website. Public.
You sitting here
No.
as the service district board? No. When you go to a foundation board meeting, that foundation board can do whatever that foundation board wants to do.
So I'm looking at moving forward, not looking behind. I want to get everything out there so everybody can see it. It doesn't have to be in a box in somebody's office. If you can put it out, scan it in and put it on the computer somewhere. That might be a better way of getting out there, because I really want to see the foundation succeed. I want to see the foundation become viable again, because it's been kind of dormant the last couple of years.
Mr. McKay, if I can just clarify Mr. Perez's, okay. Then I'd like to clarify Mr. Perez's statement.
I have a question. Is it even proper for us to be discussing that here at the Rosamond Community Service District Board meeting? It's not the same entity. We're here and you're spending the money from the Rosamond community for the Rosamond Community Service District. And you're discussing business of another entity. And it's wasting our time and money. It's a separate thing. Keep it separate.
Want me to answer that? Board membership of the Rosamond Foundation would be governed by the bylaws of the Rosamond Foundation, which I do not have a copy of, so I cannot answer that question as I sit here right at this moment. If that is the direction of this board, I will look at it, but I am not counsel for the foundation as of yet. If that is, that would be a question for the board as well. But I am not, I don't represent that entity. It's a separate entity.
When I tried to slow that down, all that happened was criticism that we weren't doing this, we weren't doing that, we weren't doing our job in providing parks, but no one would sit down and try to understand that we had zero money coming in to fund parks. When this district received the responsibility for parks and recreation and did not receive the revenue to support it, not one dime should have been put towards the function of parks and recreation until the entity received the revenue to operate. Because the other funds, water, sewer, and lighting, are all enterprise funds, and that money has to be borrowed, and you have to pay it back, you have to have a plan to do it, and we have begun doing that in this last budget.
Don't landscaping cost us about $8,000 a month, and how much does a pool cost to operate in the summertime? Do you know that?
Well, it's, to keep that pool open, it's about $85,000.
$85,000?
It may have been more. I know when I was a county supervisor,
So
it was $85,000.
There's about $200,000 right there.
One of the other things that you left out was the fact that that loan also has to pay interest.
That's correct. Well, that goes without saying, you're right.
Those loans have been accruing interest, they've just been adding to principal. The interest hasn't been paid, but it is being accrued.
So how much are we in debt to the parks?
The parks are in debt to the water and sewer funds.
I mean, so I mean, right.
Just over $2 million.
$2 million?
And 1 million in the last 3 years.
Again, this is quick and dirty, it's unaudited.
Okay.
And a point of clarity, in 2015, this 44,000 that you see, that's CSA money, but there's no way of me pulling it out because it's lumped in as property tax. In prior years, the former accountant had split the ad valorem tax between Fund 5 and 51 on a percentage allocation, 60-40. We elected not to do that this year because the park fund needed more money. In an attempt to keep from having to borrow more money, we chose to use that discretionary revenue more effectively.
In West Park, people that own houses pay part of that, right?
Through the CSA for the maintenance area, but that's not part of this discussion.
Maintenance is a CSA, what's the part they paying for the pool? They're paying for the pool as well, correct?
Yes. Not through the property tax, they pay as a service. It's not a discretionary revenue, it's pool revenue.
So it's neither 5 nor 51?
It goes into 5, but it's not discretionary.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
We don't have a general fund, we don't have property taxes that we're allowed to use in that way. So it shouldn't be confused that just because the district as a whole has money or has revenue or has a surplus, that it can be used for any function.
One of the things, I asked for this to be put on here for discussion tonight so that the board could understand what discretionary revenue is and what the expenditures are for. And I think one of the things we're going to see in the future is we're going to have an action item on the agenda on how to pay off this loan, how to raise revenue, and things like that. But it's going to be a separate agenda item. But, you know, first of all, you got to lay the foundation so we can understand where the monies are coming from and how that they're expended right now. Now, one of the things, if we weren't using this money to pay down the loan, we would be putting it into our reserves, or we'd be using that money to do other things for the district. And also maybe use it to keep the rates down, use it to pay for our capital improvements. So, you know, these are things that we have to look at. And as Mr. Perez has said to you tonight, he inherited this. This all started back in 2009. And so it's something now that it's left for this board, and we're going to have to get in there and find out how to correct it. Okay? And this is not an action item, so but I'm going to ask, is there anyone from the public that would like to talk about discretionary funds?
Sir, the people voted for parks.
People voted
Sir,
to give the parks
Sir,
with
Mr.
not, no
President,
revenue
you
to
don't have
go
to
with it.
debate it with me. I just made a comment. It's not open to a challenge. But I'm saying the community voted for parks.
Yes,
So what I'm saying that maybe the community needs to understand that we're gonna have parks so that we're not pulling money out of different pockets. We're gonna have to pay for it. That's the only point I'm making.
Steve, didn't you say there was no grant, you couldn't get grants or anything for that?
We tried several times for Prop
Because the
4
incomes-
grants, and we had people in the Capitol that were supportive of us, and we couldn't get a grant.
Is it based on the income in the town?
Part of it was our economic position, absolutely.
They make too much money.
Mr. Webb, if my memory serves me correctly, there was two things on the ballot. One of them was to give us the power to do parks, and the second one was to fund the parks. The people passed the portion to grant us the power to do parks, but they withheld the money from
Yes,
us.
sir.
They didn't vote for it.
Yes, sir.
All
So
right,
that's
so-
what I'm saying, that's our fault in the community. Maybe the board, if we're gonna continue to go this way, we need to come back to the community and ask us to consider it again, because it's a hole that we, the community, dug ourselves in, and it's our responsibility to dig ourselves out of it. Like I said, the board shouldn't have to think about, ways to generate more money to offset a number that we created ourselves. We asked for it, and we should be grown enough to pay for it. It may not be popular, but sometimes a popular thing, may not be the best thing to do. We do it because it's popular, but the fiscal responsibility is to say no to it. We said, yes, we wanted it, we got it, but now we can't afford it. So it's not a challenge. All I'm saying, maybe we gotta revisit of telling the community, you have it now, are you gonna pay for it?
Okay, and this is what we're saying, that we're gonna bring it up in the future agenda items.
I know, I wasn't a challenge, it was just a comment about how we got there with it.
Okay. And when I was on the board in the early 1990s, I asked the board at that time to create a position of a grant writer so that we can go out and we can ask for different things. There is money available out there if we have somebody that's writing grants for us, asking for parks and recreation. There's money out there for asking for solar systems. There's money out there for doing tertiary water treatment plants. These are all out there. But if we don't have the expertise on how to write the grant, then we're not going to get it. And so one of the things that I would like to discuss tonight is to give the manager the direction to look to hire somebody from the local community to be a grant writer and write grants for us. And now, one of the things about grant writing, and let me explain this to you. You probably got dollar signs rolling in your eyes saying, oh, what's this going to cost us? Grant writing does not cost us a dime. Okay, what happens is the grant writer writes the grant, and the grant writer in the grant is authorized to take a percentage of that grant for writing the grant. So the rest of the money then would come and would be utilized in the way that the grant specifies that it has to be accounted for. So we would have to say that if we got $1 million, how that $1 million was spent, and we have an accountant there that would be probably charged with saying how that grant money is spent, so that every dime of it is spent according to the way that the grant was authorized. Yes, sir.
We currently manage several grants in the district, and we manage that from a financial standpoint and do the reports as necessary and apply for reimbursements under the grant. Most grants today, they don't give you a chunk of money. They issue you money as you complete various steps of whatever it is. A lot of government grants today don't allow you to put money in the grant for a grant writer. Where you generally will make that up is an in-kind match. So if you're going to get $100, say, and you have to match it with $100, which would be referred to as a 50-50 grant, somewhere in your $100 is the payment for the grant writer. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but the grant itself generally will not allow that
That's a
money.
government grant.
Pardon me?
That's government grants. I'm talking about corporation grants. There's a lot of money out there by corporations that will do things like for our parks and recs, things that'll help the community.
On a daily basis, I get no less than 5 emails from a service that we have utilized for grant funding. It has all the grants that are out there. I reviewed those to see if there's grants that, not that we can just use, but some that we can afford. Because a lot of them come with so many strings attached to them that the cost is more than the number that you see. Going through those, we have tried a number of grants that we thought we were in great shape. And a lot of them, a lot of times, as Director Lansgard pointed out, the more people that are involved in the grant, the better your chances, because it spreads the money out on a broader spectrum, and that's what a lot of grants look for. A bang for their buck is basically what it is. But trying to make that match up in our rural area, not saying that there isn't grants out there. We have not spent that time to go after the smaller grants that basically would cost us more with staff time. With a grant writer, it might work. But like you, I would make it contingent on the grant writer's success.
Yes.
I feed hundreds of folks from this community and do a lot of things up here with people. That's a discussion you need to take carefully. Grant writers aren't what they used to be, because grants aren't what they used to be. And there's some money that looks like it's easy to get, but if you get it, the compliance is more than what the money is going to be given to you. The compliance is what kills you. And so you have to be very specific, and that gets down to monies that are for a specific thing. You've got to stay within that. And so why it works for me, and I run Grace Resource Center and 2 shelters, my 24th year, is you build trust in the community. And then when the word gets out, you're looking for certain amounts of money for things, people will come and help you with that. So I think what you do as a board is you create an opportunity for folks to sit down and talk about what are the needs. The park thing bothers me. Steve and I talked years ago when it first came around that you can't take on something with no revenue fund for it. But I think when you work together, like you seem to be doing tonight, and build trust in the community, not just Rosamond, but the bigger community, I think there are aerospace companies and there are people who, based on your good favor and your honor and your trust in one another, will step up to the plate and say, we want to do this for the kids of the community. I raise about $115,000 a month, which is nothing compared to this operation, but for me it's the world. And it only happens because of trust and that I'm not a liability to the Antelope Valley. So people will jump on your bandwagon when you begin to discuss that publicly and get that word out, and because people trust Steve and folks that have grown up here and want to come back and give money towards what's going on here. But that is a very important thing. And I give myself to you for that discussion at a later date. But I think that's, a grant writer may come out of that, but what you want to first is just seek a direction, build trust, and then prioritize the things that need to be funded. You'll be amazed at people that got money sitting around just to help you out, if they trust you.
Okay. Thank you. Connection speeds up to 10 MIPS down and 5 MIPS upload for a cost of $200 a month. And initial on-site wireless CPE equipment installation and configuration of $150. So the first month would be a total of $350.
That's just for the waste treatment plant?
That one for the waste treatment plant, and I believe, Mr. Perez, if you could correct me, the current bill is $369.
At the wastewater treatment plant?
Right, for the internet
I
connection.
believe it's close to that, 360, 369, something.
So we're looking at replacing who we have now with Lions?
You're asking the wrong guy, I didn't bring this, I haven't even been no one's even discussed it with me.
Actually, we had a short discussion, and this gulps a whole lot more. When we had the discussion when we were on our tour about your network here, some of the old equipment you're running, 10100 network and some of the things, your comment
About
to
the
me
router?
was if we could get things upgraded, you'd love it. This is why I brought this forward. This would be a start. My other recommendation to the board would to maybe get Lions Networking to take a look at the entire network and propose what it would cost to upgrade the network throughout the building.
But I would recommend utilizing our internal IT person right now.
I would say have them propose a cost evaluation so we can look at the best cost.
Well, I don't think it's just cost. I think what we need to do is understand what condition is our system in today, what do we need, what don't we need? Because we just can't come up with an expenditure in the middle of the year, number one. It has to be budgeted, and it should, if we're going to do a system replacement. We need some time and some discussion on how to prepare that, so the impact of doing something like that logistically and fiscally is done correctly. And our IT person, I don't know if you know him, but he's a forensic IT individual.
What's his name?
And Dan, what's Dan's name? Reed. Dan Reed. And he's done this district a tremendous job in protecting and getting us up to speed with things that we wouldn't have had with the average IT person. And because we went through two of them, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and we went out and got Dan, and he's excellent. And that's why I say we should talk to him to see what areas of the system need upgrading, and those areas that don't yet, maybe we prepare for those to be next.
Oh,
but do it in a phased approach.
And what I was suggesting is have Dan, what company is he with?
Dan Reed Consulting.
Oh, so Dan Reed's Consulting? Okay. Now, have him come up with something, have some outside sources come up with some other ideas. Because I'm in the computer, networking computer business. When you get more than one set of eyes, you can come up with a whole lot better solution. And every one of them is going to give you a different cost.
But the other ones won't have the intellect in regard to the system itself.
No.
On our system, or not the intellect, but the understanding of what our system is.
Yes and no. It all runs on electronics, it all runs on computers. There may be some specifics in software that is different, but when it comes to the networking, you bring any network technician in and they can evaluate.
Well, I'm sure they can evaluate it, but they can also sell you something you may not need.
That's why you get multiple proposals. That's what I'm suggesting.
I may be a little bit behind times, but I know Charter cable came in the community, and that boosted up the speed you can hop onto the internet now through the cable. I don't think Charter's out at the waste treatment plant. Before that, we were relying on the GTE tower, the T1 that was over at next to Glendower Park, next to the school. And the further you got away from that, the less juice you had. So I don't know how much speed we're going to get out the water treatment plant, or how much what's available to us as far as transmitting these high speeds. So I guess that's one thing I want to look at.
I'm not a computer guy, but when he presented the system that we have now, we got from Intellicom, I want to say it was a 10 up, 10 down, and which was significant. And it actually blew away the two AT&T T1 lines that we had that were going down all the time, creating a big problem for this system.
In telecom? That's through the air though.
Yeah.
No, they do have links at that speed through wireless.
Yeah.
T1 is 1.5 megabit per second versus 10 megabit. So it'll be a huge upgrade.
That's why we went with them.
And, not to mention, they brought us online in one day. They came in, hooked up, and had us going, functioning in one day.
And telecom?
Yeah.
Are they shooting from top of the mountain over there by Palmdale, or?
I believe so. They're shooting there to one of our tanks and then into here. And that system then was added to take care of our SCADA. So we shoot off of that tower site on the tanks down to our SCADA system for our various wells and wherever we need that.
We're not affected by wind and rain and snow on the mountaintop, or?
Not very much. The speed drop from, I'm talking way above my head, will happen occasionally, but the time that it's interrupted is almost not noticeable. But we do have some occasionally. I don't think we've experienced it, but their system has had it. It's not 100%.
I know Charter has a lot of interruptions for being a cable business.
Charter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is Lions Networking, or are they in the valley? I've never heard the name.
They're out of Palmdale, I believe.
It's like a Palmdale, yeah.
A company in Palmdale? Okay, thank you.
I think we probably should direct this to staff to do, like what Mr. Shingledecker recommended. They get together and they come up with an idea on how to prove what you discussed with Mr. Perez on the walkthrough.
We were just talking about the basic integrity of the network. When we were doing the tour, the network was equipment was very old. Okay, we're talking 10, 12 years old.
Okay.
And when you're talking a infrastructure for your entire facility, it's
That's all for
tortoise and a hare,
Yeah.
plain and simple. And, you know, a 10-100 network is extremely slow, and then you're talking, you know, minimum of a gigabit. More productivity for the people, data transfers are faster, everything. And a complete evaluation isn't saying, okay, replace it, it's getting someone to come in, review it, the current technician can review it, and you get 2 proposals. More than likely, about 95% of them are gonna be the same, okay? What's gonna be different will be whatever costs that come in. And that's where the board can take a look and say, okay, is it something we can look at going forward in funding to get accomplished? And you might come up with some better ideas of the way things are done now that could do nothing but help the district.
That'd be good if you discuss that.
Yeah.
So we can have a report back next time.
And you and, Mr. President, and you and Mr. Shingle get together and come back and make a presentation to the board?
3015.5, especially 3.2 and 3.3 should be a lot lower. I don't see allowing $249,000 to be moved from one budget item and spent without board approval after the budget's been approved. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's way too much money to have discretion for one person.
Well, I think you touched on that because it's a budgeted amount also.
Right, and in other words, the board doesn't get involved unless it's $250,000. I think maybe back in the days when we had all kinds of money to throw around, maybe that was the people, but I think the board needs to be more involved. Don't need to micromanage necessarily, but we need to have smaller numbers.
I think the board needs to be in discussion on moving funds, you know.
If you take a look at the agenda, that particular, it's in conflict with itself. If you look at 10.5.3.5, it says the board, the budget modifications of any amount between funds must be approved by the board of directors. If you look above that, it gives stipulation. Whether it's budgetary or not, it's in conflict with itself.
No, it's not. It's a matter of context and syntax. A fund is a water fund, a sewer fund, a park fund. The GL line items are expenditure codes and revenue codes within a fund. So we couldn't move money from the water fund to the park fund at any dollar amount without board approval. But anything within a fund could be moved.
To look at the wording of the entire process there. Because if you start off on the first paragraph, it says that it can be moved within a fund or an expenditure code. And then when you hit the very last budgetary item, it talks about between funds must be approved by the board. See what I'm saying? Right. In one part it says this dollar amount can be removed without any board approval. And then further down, it gives a higher amount, required board approval. That statement there says any amount requires board approval.
Between funds, not within funds.
Yeah, we understand that, obviously. I think Dennis does too. The problem is that dollar amounts seem a little high. Is that something we can address tonight, even though we had a policy workshop? We can still lower those numbers?
You could certainly move approval of the resolution with modifications to the attachments if you wanted to do that. Or you could give direction as to what changes you want, and the resolution could be brought back with a nice clean document for you to look at. Either way. But I recommend strongly that if you're going to make modifications to the attachments, you be very clear about what line item you're talking about in which code, so that it can be brought down in the minutes correctly and we bring back the right document for signature.
Between $1 and $24,999, I'd like to change that from $1 to 20,000. We'll make it 19,999. The next one down, instead of 25 and 49, that would be between 20,000 and 40,000, or 39,999. The other one where it says 50,000 and 249, make that 40,000 and 100,000. And anything over, or 99.99, make that 99,999. I think anything over $100,000 within a fund and expenditure code shall be proposed and prepared, and otherwise then taken to the board for the directors for final approval.
So, I want to make sure I got that, because I'm not sure that I did. 3010531, you would change to between $1 and 19,999.
Correct.
Then 310.5.3.2 would be 20,000 to 39,999. Then 3010.5.3 would be 40,000 to 99,999. And 3010.5.4 will be
0.3.4, yes.
0.3.4, my apologies, would be 100,000 to what?
It's just anything over 100,000.
Anything, oh, so you would take out one category. Oh, I see.
No, we're not taking anything.
Oh, okay, okay, to
We're
100.
just deleting to
Okay.
250 and making it 100.
Okay, making it, got it.
Time and our efficiency to do that. Right.
It's definitely at the direction of the board, but it would gum up operations definitely. And that was the purpose of the budget workshop, was to discuss these numbers so that we could come to a conclusion on what would be effective in operations. And for an organization this size, I have 10 clients in the state of California that are this size, and these are very normal numbers.
How often does that come up?
I'm sorry, sir?
How often does that come up? They have to move that?
Not often.
I didn't think so. Did it come up at all last year?
I think I've done 1 in 3 years.
Okay.
I thought this is what we kind of discussed and accepted at the workshop.
Yes, sir.
I don't remember discussing numbers at the workshop. Because nothing changed from what it was before. I just was looking at the line items.
He was explaining to me that there is a problem since 2012. What they did is they had 2 different accounting systems, And when you're writing code, there's all kinds of lines of code that's being written, and these codes don't mesh, and so we have a disparity of $32,981.43. And he said, what should I do about it? And I said, put it on an agenda item, bring it, and the board will discuss it. And I think that when you look at it, and not only, correct me if I misstate what you said, but not only did he look at it, but he had other people look at it, and nobody could find out where this money is going astray at. And so we're going to have another audit coming up, and what we want to do is clarify it and give him the ability to make the reconciliation balance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
However, as a point of clarity, these weren't deposits or any kind of money. These were simply computer recording errors, to the best of my understanding.
Could you explain why it says deposits in transit then? It says, well, here's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong. First it says, per the bank statement on June 30th, we had an ending balance of $690,000 and change. And then per the general ledger, we only had $672,000 and change. And under that, you said add deposits in transit, $516, $1,700, $1,900, $20, $817. Where do they come from?
Those are deposits that we've collected from the community, that we've recorded on our books, that are in transit to the bank at the time of the reconciliation process.
Also, that just happened on June 30th.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah, it's just between June and July.
okay. That's what confused me on deposits.
No problem.
Mr. President. Brent, can you explain some of these errors that we did find and we did correct? Because it's, the way it's stated, it's kind of like, okay, there's electronic errors. And I heard the crowd, but it does happen, and we did find some of those. So if you could explain that.
Absolutely, and I'll apologize. I say they're electronic errors because I have one of those minds that likes to get into the nitty-gritty, and I don't want to burden the audience with that nitty-gritty. From what I understand with the programmers and the system conversion, when the coding was originally set up to take in billing, revenues, receivables, bad debts, all of these are very normal transaction types for a billing system for the water and sewer and the street lighting that we send a utility bill out for. When a data set hits for a given customer, the original line items that are set up in the back-end tables of usually an SQL program, Director Shingledecker knows what I'm talking about, they're all built on these tables that you can go and query and gather information. And from what I understand from the programmers at our billing system, the GL accounts, which are what I use to account for cash, receivables, revenues, expenses, and those things, were miscoded in the back-end tables of the billing system originally. So, for example, if somebody will come in and if the ladies up front, I'll take a step back. If the ladies up front generated a normal bill, in the system it would create a receivable and a revenue and generate a revenue. When that customer came in to pay, it would relieve the receivable and we would receive that payment type, whether it was cash, a check, a credit card, e-check, however they elected to pay. My understanding from the programmers was that the things that were being considered cash weren't necessarily cash. So let's say in my original example that if they came in and they generated the bill, that accounts receivable, which is now debit, the accounting verbiage, would have a revenue associated with it, may have been going to cash inadvertently because they didn't understand or they had coded these tens of thousands of lines of code and didn't have a clear understanding of how they were falling out as it relates to accounting. When I first got here in March, the former accountant explained to me that there were these reconciling items that he could not find. This balance that I'm asking you to permit me to write off has existed since before I got here. I worked with him, I worked with the old administrative assistant, I've worked with the programmers in the billing system, I've worked with the programmers of the accounting system, I've worked with higher level CPAs than I, and we cannot find them through these various transactions. We do what's called a proof of cash, which is a dollar for dollar. When these things happen, we go in and we do a dollar for dollar recognition of each thing that happened at the bank. And we match it up with what happened in the general ledger. These transactions never hit the bank, which means that they got recorded as cash, but no money was ever really collected from them because they were coded incorrectly. I have since understood the issue and corrected the issue, and have worked with our ladies up front very diligently to make sure that things get posted in a timely manner, because one of the other problems was that something would get posted and deposited into the bank, but it was never recorded onto the books. So we had timing errors as well. We've identified a majority of those, and they're flowing through still to this day. Things that got written off at the bank over a year ago are now on the books to float through later this year. So I've identified as many of those as I can. I've gone through and I've done a proof of cash, and pursuant to the staff report, I'm asking your permission, mostly for audit purposes, because if I just elected to do it on my own, the auditors would probably ask me to do it. Plus, this is your district. I'm at Steve's direction, he's at yours, and it's the right thing to do, to educate you about it.
Thank you for
Water and sewer, setting up new service, for example. We do hold a liability account, not a revenue account, which functions the same way, but we account for that so that when they do, we have a very detailed record of how much they've given us, so that we can remit it back to them when they terminate service.
We do now, but I guess this is money we have from the past. Is it possible to send that money in there as customer deposits?
I can't speak to that, I don't know.
And then the other question is, it seems to me that, I know you do debits and credits backwards, accounting, but it seems to me that we have more money in there than what you're showing on the books. But we actually have the money, we actually have the $32,000, so we're not really losing $16,000 that we're actually bringing in.
What's happened is it's been recorded through a revenue account, closed into fund balance. Like retained earnings for a regular business, it's been closed through there, so our revenues are overstated, our fund balances are overstated.
But the bank statement is not overstated.
The bank statement has a $32,000 reconciling issue on it.
Showing that we're getting $2,000 more than we think.
Correct.
What we have actually is what's in the bank, right?
Ask your question in a different way.
If I wanted to go write a check on June 30th, 2013 for $690,000, I could do that.
If you wanted to go to the bank on June 30th of 2013,
And clear out that account and put it in another bank, I could take all $690,000.
no, you could take $637,000 because you have deposits and transits and outstanding checks and a deposit reconciliation item.
Okay, I could, but in other words, I would take enough for the bank statement and not for the general ledger, correct?
Right. That's why we do the bank reconciliation, is to match up the activity that's at the bank with what's on the books. Because we want to make sure that the books are accurate.
So, if we go forward with your proposal, we'll be adding $16,000 to the water fund and $16,000 to the sewer fund?
Subtracting.
We're taking that money out of the sewer fund, and where's that money go?
We're not taking any money out. The money was never there.
Because what happens, you just had a conflict between the people up there, and everybody in the audience was kind of guesstimating what could be going on. So perhaps if you're going to do that type of dynamic, at least share with us what you're looking at. I know the paper says 32,000 and something, trying to push it around, but you folks got more to look at than we do. Okay. So perhaps if we would have had a slideshow or a PowerPoint, hold on, Olaf, my turn. If we were going to do that, because whatever we're going to do, I understand it'll get done, but you wind up losing us in the transition because you start talking about it, then you folks go back and forth, and we become excess luggage. So perhaps, then you ask our opinion on it, but we can only give you an opinion on a piece of paper here, so perhaps you can show the numbers to us. When you're looking at the numbers, then we could all be on the same page together, looking at the same set of numbers.
And it'll be open to the public, and you will get an opportunity to make comments at that time. All right. So can I have a motion for that we, first of all, let me ask a question, to get ahead of myself. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion that we set the meeting date for February 24th, 2015, from 1 to 3?
Right here at the district office?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Mr. Wallace makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by the board? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 tonight, and it deals with the committee assignments. As you know, I've asked the board when we do the workshops, that the workshop is not a committee of 2 individuals, but it's a committee of the whole. All 5 board members are there. And the reason for that is, when things are discussed by a 2-member committee, they go through all the arguments, and then they bring it to the other board members, and they have to go through all those arguments all over again. So I have put together a package of community service district assignments for 2015. But what I would like to suggest to the board, that we do away with the 2-member committee, and all committee meetings are committee of the whole, and then we don't have problems with some members knowing something that somebody else doesn't. Everybody will be on the same page. So I'd like to hear your comments on that.
I like it.
I'm fine with it. The only thing I would say is you're probably gonna have to accept the fact that you're gonna not have all 5 board members there sometimes, because if you do, you're not gonna have time to schedule a meeting. In other words, sometimes the meeting will be 4, sometimes 5, maybe even 3, you know, because you need to schedule a meeting and everybody's not gonna be able to make it.
Do we schedule them as special meetings, Madam Attorney?
It doesn't make a difference how you schedule them. There'll be people that can't make it to a specific date. And you need to do it whether all 5 can be there or not.
Yes, okay, but here would be the thing. We could propose a meeting date, and if all 5 can't be there, we can always change the meeting, either the time or the date of that meeting, because it's going to be a committee meeting, and again, it's open to the public.
That's fine. I'm just saying you're probably gonna, because you wanna
Okay?
do 5 schedules, you're gonna run into conflicts. And I think you should go ahead and have a meeting whether all 5 can be there or not. Let's say I have a conflict, I can't make that.
Okay.
So what? You guys can still do
Okay.
it, you know?
There'll be 4 of us, we'll only have to argue with 1 of us.
Yeah.
So, my proposal is that for assigning committees, I'm going to assign each director to all the committees, and the committees are engineering, finance, government, public affairs, parks and recreation, personnel, policy, water conservation. And so that is my suggestion.
So will you be the chairperson?
No, what we'll do is we'll assign chairpersons to each one of these committees besides myself.
And I would encourage that maybe you would discuss more than just Parks and Recreation at a meeting. You may discuss 2 items or maybe 3 items.
You can mix them that way.
Because you're all
Yes, we're all
there.
there, okay?
Yeah.
But here would be the thing, Alan, you're asking a question. On the list that you have there, like engineering is Mr. Glennon, finance is you, general government, public affairs is Mr. Glennon again, parks and recreation is Mr. Shingledecker, personnel is you, policy is Mr. Shingledecker, and water conservation is myself. These will be the chairpersons of the committee. Yes, ma'am.
I just thought the board might want to inquire of staff how that might impact them, having the entire board at every committee meeting. I'm not sure logistically how that might work out, so
I don't think it's a problem.
not a problem? Okay. I'm seeing concern that perhaps is
It'd be better if it was only one person, but.
Okay. So that'll be it then. The committee assignments are gonna be all 5 directors. And that brings us,
Appropriate, and if you set it up as a special meeting of the board as a workshop meeting, then you can do that. If you set it up as a committee meeting, then it's not a board meeting, and therefore, if you needed to take action on something, you would not be able to.
okay, here's the thing. A lot of the people in the community will not be able to be at our committee meetings, all right? If we keep them as committee meetings, and then we can't take action items, we have to bring it back to the full board on a regular scheduled meeting, and the public will be there.
Yes, it may also impact your ability to move nimbly on things that require swift action, but I leave it to your discretion.
Okay? But items of swift action, if the majority of the public can't be there, it doesn't give us the ability to build our trust. So, we'll call them committee meetings.
As well as the proposed minutes from the board secretary. We heard from Mr. Ziegler earlier this evening on the November 25th meeting, and I just happened to be in the audience on that day. He did mention he lived at 1432 Sweetgum Avenue, and that's how I was able to pull up the picture of his home, and was reminded that the community service district actually does own, I guess, little strips where trees are planted. And I would request that I have to tell you that I was present at the meeting as this transpired. And these are my representation, most of the yellow stuff is mine. And I would ask that the minutes be approved in yellow with the comments in red made by the board secretary remaining, so that there's a fuller picture of what went on at the meeting.
And now we are trying to put together the minutes that not only Mr. Lansgard recalls, but I was also at some of these meetings, and I happen to agree with Mr. Lansgard that some of the things that he's putting in here happened, you know. So I want to get the best clear minutes, and if nothing else, let me ask the board this here. Would you be willing to approve these minutes, okay, if we put the stipulation in here that the board secretary can put a set of minutes for these meetings, and that we also agree to put Mr. Lansgard's minutes in there so that the people can see?
No.
I have the floor, thank you. You'll have your chance, okay? All I'm trying to, yes ma'am?
It would be inappropriate for the board to approve 2 sets of minutes for the same meeting. It is necessary for you to select a set of minutes for the meeting. And I will note that the Brown Act only requires that the minutes include a record of the actions taken. So if you want to strip it down to bare bones, action taken, then you can get down to what is bare minimum required, and you don't need to have the debate. That is one suggestion I have for you, is to take it down to the bare bones so that the rest, it need not be debated, and you need not have it transcribed, and you need not have to have everyone sit and listen. That is one suggestion you can do, but it is inappropriate to have 2 sets of minutes for the same meeting.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion that we, go ahead.
I need to respond to your comments about not approving the minutes. The minutes in question are the 25th and the 3rd of the previous board. Please take into consideration that we had gone from 45 employees to 17. And your clerk of the board, or your secretary at the time, has more than just this responsibility. As administrator, or director of administration and human resources manager, she has a tremendous amount of other duties. So The transcription and the production of the minutes lag some time. So that's why they didn't have an opportunity to approve their own minutes.
Did it follow the Brown Act all the way through?
It followed the Brown Act, yes.
Did you answer me that about 2 weeks ago? Or did you give me a different answer 2 weeks ago?
I gave you the same answer 2 weeks ago.
Okay. The meeting on the 10th, where the regular meeting that the board had set up and the meeting the three directors had put together, I stepped down because that was a regular meeting and they put 2 agendas together.
Yes,
Was that meeting legal or illegal?
that meeting was legal.
You're telling me that was illegal now?
I'm
And
telling
you
you,
don't recall telling me both of those were violations of the Brown Act?
I did not tell you either of those were violations of the Brown Act. I told you the meeting on the 10th, the agenda was prepared in a manner that was not consistent with board policy, but it did not violate the Brown Act.
Is there a policy where 3 board members can schedule a regular meeting on their own?
They didn't schedule a regular meeting on their own, they prepared
They
an
put
agenda.
They put their agenda along with the other agenda, and they put
Correct.
the 2 together.
Correct, but it was on a regular meeting, it was an agenda for a regular meeting called as a regular meeting, so it was not a violation of the Brown Act. The preparation of the agenda was separate from the way the policy was written, but it was not a violation of the Brown Act.
I asked you these questions about 2 weeks ago, and I recall getting 2 completely different answers. You don't recall that?
No, I gave you
All right.
consistent answers.
All right, fine.
Spending a considerable amount of time recreating the AP list into a format that the old board had requested for reasons unbeknownst to me. The staff report here is more concise, it's more clear. The agenda is sent out several days prior, so if there are specific questions that need to be answered, you can ask those questions privately. If you want to bring them up in public session, obviously that's your prerogative. But the purpose of presenting it this way is to make it more clear and more concise.
Thank you. Quick comment. Appreciate the clarity, that the extra effort, I don't know if it's extra effort, it just comes off the way your account sheets are set up, but it's a lot easier to read that way, and we know exactly what it's for. We don't have to pester you with a bunch of questions.
I tried to anticipate the obvious questions so that we can move more quickly and efficiently.
And this is available for the public to see online as well.
Yes, it's part of the agenda packet.
Perfect.
Any public comment on the AP?